Hola! I'm Mike, the backyard mechanic, and I'm reposting a video. For those of you who are following my path to an air-conditioned garage, this is step 1 of 4. I insulate the floor and attic space above my garage. This was originally posted on my other channel, What Did Mike Do Now? I'll be merging all 3 of those videos into Mike the Backyard Mechanic and shutting the other one down. 2 channels, 1 Mike? I don't want to overwhelm YouTube. Anyway, because this was made for the other channel, it's going to have a different intro music and style. But it's the same Mike attempting projects he shouldn't try and comedy he shouldn't do. And so, without further ado... Hola! I'm Mike! And what did I do now? I recently moved into a 3-car garage. I'm thinking, wow, I could park in there, work on a car in there, and have room for plenty of tools. But my wife was thinking, wow, I can store a lot of crap in that garage. And my wife has a lot of crap. This is just the stuff in the garage from the move. Look at all this stuff we have in storage. This is 600 square feet of R38 face batting. The R value for insulation is a way to measure how much resistance the insulation has to heat flow. In the ceiling, you want to use as high an R value as you can afford. The walls are not as critical, and you can get away with a lower R value. Next, I will put flooring on top of the insulation, so I can create storage space. U.S. Southern homes don't have basements. There are 3 basic reasons for this. Eastern Texas, Houston, and Louisiana have wet soil. They're built on top of swampland, not conducive for basements. You get alligators. Dig anywhere down around 6 inches and you'll hit clay. Clay expands and contracts with weather conditions. It would turn your basement into an accordion. We all know how much cement walls like to flex. There's a lot of limestone around here. We're sitting on top of bedrock. Bedrock is fun on Saturday morning cartoons, not so much for digging. Excavating rock is prohibitively expensive. I've got several sheets of oriented strand board, or OSB. I didn't get the 3/4 inch flooring, I got 7/16, which is cheaper, lighter, and easier to cut and carry. I don't need 3/4 inch boards in the attic because I'm just storing my mess. I'm not going to start a dance studio up there. Emptying out the storage unit will save me $200 a month or $2,400 a year. I can also claim a tax credit on the insulation. This job is going to pay for itself. If only it would install itself. Time to get started. First thing was to buy insulation and flooring for the 600 square foot garage attic. I got 14 sheets of 7/16 4x8 OSB flooring and 8 bags of R38 faced insulation batting. I used every inch of the OSB, but I ended up returning 2 bags of insulation. I had Home Depot deliver it. It cost $80, but all this doesn't fit in my Mustang. I waited patiently at my mailbox for everything to arrive. I was really curious how USPS was going to deliver this, and really curious how it was going to fit in my mailbox. To my surprise, it arrived on a flatbed tractor trailer. It had a forklift on the back to unload. I tipped the driver a few bucks to put the pallets in my garage. Meanwhile, I bought a ton of 2x4s. They did fit in the Mustang. To help illustrate the plan, here is a model of the attic over the garage. The space is divided into 6 sections in order of when the work is done. Section 6 already has flooring that came with the house, since that is the access point for the ladder and how you get to the AC unit. You might think all there is to flooring an attic is to drop a sheet of OSB, nail it down, and you're done. The problem is getting above the wires and insulation. I don't have insulation to deal with on this project, but all the wires from the electrical box run from the far end of the garage across the ceiling to the rest of the house. I considered cutting all the wires, but the wife says she likes electricity, and my scissors weren't able to cut through the Romex anyway. To get the floor above the wires, I need to use risers. The first task is to work on section 1. It is the most accessible from the attic access point. I cut a few dozen blocks from 2x4s to use as risers to support the runners that will support the flooring. 2 blocks are stacked on a beam and nailed down. There's 4 floorboards and 5 runners. Each runner gets 4 risers or 8 blocks for a total of 40 blocks. The 5 runners are placed. They're going to be running lengthwise with the floorboards. My Metabo nail gun makes quick work of nailing everything in place. Because the bags of insulation are 50 pounds each, I opened them downstairs. It turns out this bat was still 50 pounds. The rest were 0 pounds. The bats are tucked in place between the rafters. It's important to not smush the insulation. The more expanded and relaxed it is, the more efficient it is. To cut the OSB flooring, I drew a line with my 8-foot straight edge, set the depth of my circular saw to a little more than the thickness of the wood, and cut it in half in place. This is the max size of the flooring. They need to be small enough to lift and fit through the attic opening. I screw all the flooring in place. I use screws instead of nails to make it easier to remove the flooring to access wires or fixtures or do future work like adding lighting or running more wires. This piece needed a section cut out for the gas pipe. This section is wider because of the attic opening, but the section next to it is smaller. I used a piece of insulation from the smaller section. The flooring also had to be cut to different widths. Section 2 is by far the hardest section, but I needed to do it second because, well, it's called Section 2. This section has a rat's nest of wires that run over this rafter support, which dictated the height of the floor for half of the sections. Section 2 also has lighting. I used work lights for Section 1, and that was ridiculous, so I installed permanent lighting right here in this video. I decided I did risers and runners wrong in Section 1. For Section 2, I did L-shaped risers that were nailed into the side of the rafters. Insulation is tucked into place. The next runner is nailed into place, horizontally instead of vertically. These runners are running perpendicular to the floorboards this time. It is stronger than the first section, but the main benefit is I don't have to have the flooring cut to exact sizes to hit the middle of the runner. They are all 2 feet wide. I'm using a scrap piece of flooring to crawl on and make it easier to move around and work and nail the other runners into place. The insulation is tucked and pulled into place under the wire rat nest. The floor is screwed into place. Section 3 does not have any wires or anything in the way, but I still have it raised to be level with Sections 1 and 2. A special runner was used in the seam between sections. Section 4 is way easier than Sections 2 and 3. No risers will be needed, just runners. The runners give enough clearance for the 2 or 3 wires that are in this section. A support board needed to be installed against the gable face for the ends of the runners. A support board is also used here because the risers from Section 1 are in the way. Just bad planning. All the runners are nailed into place. That was like nail gun porn. I started carrying the insulation up by the bag. They're heavy, but still easier to do this way than to climb up and down the ladder 8 times per bag. I'm doing this section a row at a time. That literally provides you a floor to do the next row. The end section of the flooring is put into place, which finishes section 4. Section 5 is the easiest section of all because there are no wires or gas pipes. I can screw the flooring right to the rafters. It starts with a support in the center attic area, followed by a support against the gable face. This wire was run too tightly, so a notch was put in the rafter to loosen it up, but I still needed a slot in this piece of floor. Same deal here, same problematic wire. To finish off section 5, a wall is put in place to hold the loose insulation that is over the raised living room ceiling. You thought I was done? No! I have to rip up all this existing flooring in the last section to insulate it. I make relatively quick work of it with a heavy hammer and this nail pry bar. I put supports in this row because I'm going to replace this sloppy good enough floorboard here with one cut to size. I had a brain fart and nailed this flooring into place instead of using screws, but there's no reason to access this area in the future, which means I will have to access this area in the future. The double 4x8 foot row was unwieldy. I just leaned the floor up out of the way. This area was half-ass insulated. I reused the loose insulation that was there. Now it's whole ass. Whole ass, not... Never mind. The last area is also a 4x8 footer, but I have room to move the board into section 5 while I place the insulation. And in just a matter of 10 minutes, it's done! Well, in video time, it was about 100 hours of work time and 2 months of lifetime. And then 6 months to create this SketchUp of my attic. That might not have been time well spent. The blue foam mats you see in section 1 are to make it easier on my knees when crawling around. To show this wasn't a waste of time, here's a future shot of the attic with the stuff. Lots of stuff. For the risers, the L brackets were much better than stacked blocks. Stacked blocks can only be nailed in the middle, so there's not a lot of surface to fasten them in the rafter, and the result is they're rather tippy. Like me. Wait, that's tipsy. The L brackets are much stronger. Two pieces are attached with nails, and then the top piece is butted up against the top of the rafter to support the weight, and the side is nailed to the rafter for proper surface attachment. The main thing you fight in an attic is wires that are run without any slack. Romex is expensive after all, and to ask for slack because some crazed DIYer is going to do stuff is a lot to ask. I found the most useful solution was to cut a notch in the rafter, of course being careful not to weaken something structural. You might be wondering if I blocked my soffit vents. I shot for soffit vent baffles and was really disappointed that these things are cheap and made of styrofoam and cost way too much money and only come in bundles of like 1,000,000. I tried fabricating them out of box cardboard, but they were harder to attach than it sounds. I ended up just ensuring the insulation was not too long, and for when it was too high and touches the roof, blocking the air, I threw a small piece of OSB on it to hold it down. I bought a proper ventilating mask finally, but I did not have it during this project. The insulation is not like the junk we remember in the 70s. It holds together, is not dusty. It still makes you itchy, but only a little bit. Long sleeves are a good idea. Where I really needed a mask is using the nail gun. The house is 20 years old, and every shot with a gun would blast 20 years of dust into the air. I was injured twice during this project, neither one captured on video. The first time was reaching under the roof line to hold a riser with one hand and nail it with the other. I was stretching and holding myself up in an unnatural position and pulled a muscle in my abdomen, something awful. It took a couple of days to heal. The second time was more serious. Crawling around in the attic for weeks was beating up my knees more than I realized. While coming down the ladder, my left knee popped so loud it echoed in the garage. I went to the doctor and got a brace and some crutches and was out of commission for a week. It turns out I tore my meniscus, as you can see in this x-ray. You have to look real carefully to see it. There it is. That's what I did now. It went perfectly, except when it didn't. The attic was always a nice cool 65 degrees, except when it was 35 or 115. And I never got hurt, except for the 2 times that I did, but I didn't fall through the ceiling. Although, I kind of wish I had. That would have gone viral. But the question I know some of you have already written in the comments and didn't even get this far in the video is, will my attic hold all that stuff? What is the load limit? Well, let me do some calculations. Carry to 1. Well, I'll be darned. Yeah. Ceiling in my garage is going to collapse. Fortunately, I have a garage security cam so I can catch the action when it happens. That will go viral. I really need to stop living my life based on whether things go viral. My next video is going to be on calculating an attic load and what I can do to offset the looming calamity. And you'll be able to see that video on Nebula, which is the place for such content. Use the code WhatDidIDoNow? I'm kidding. I'm not on Nebula. Apparently they have a thing about channels with 0 subscribers. 0 subscribers. I really should subscribe to my own channel. But you should subscribe to see my fix for the attic load or watch it collapse. Oh, I have a fan online. Hey fan, did you like the video?
Whew, that's a lot of stuff. You know, building it out like that, I don't know. But the easy way would have been to have a bonfire. That way you can get rid of the evidence.
Thanks, fan. Wait, evidence? What exactly do you know? And how do you know it? They're all 2 feet wide. You think this is all about you?